My name is Elise. I'm 34, and lately, I've started wondering if being loved is the same thing as being seen. Because I used to feel both, desired, adored, visible, and now, I feel like I'm fading. I've been married to Marcus for 8 years. We used to be the kind of couple people looked at and said, God, I want what they have. And we did have something, I know we did. I can still remember the way his eyes would light up when I walked into a room, the way he'd find me in a crowd like he was magnetized to me. Even our silences back then felt electric, like we were always just on the edge of something, a laugh, a kiss, or something more. Now, our silences feel final. There's a reason I'm telling you all this, and I'll get there. But I need you to understand the kind of slow grief I've been carrying. It's not like anything blew up. There wasn't a huge fight or a betrayal I could name. Just the slow unraveling, thread by thread, of a woman I used to recognize in the mirror. I noticed it in the small things first. Like how Marcus's kisses started landing just a little too fast, like checking a box. Or how when we cuddled on the couch, he'd instinctively hold his phone behind my back, as if I wouldn't feel the tapping. It wasn't malicious, just thoughtless. Or maybe tired. Or maybe just, not love, not anymore. I didn't say anything at first. I made excuses. He's busy. Work's been stressful. Marriage goes through phases. All the usual lines women feed themselves when they're trying to hold something together that's already gone soft at the seams. But it's the way he started touching me that hurt the most. Not in a violent way, Marcus has never been cruel. But the warmth in his touch began to cool. He'd wrap his arms around me in bed, and it would feel more like a habit than a desire. Like this is what husbands do, not this is what I want to do to her. The weight of his hand on my hip became more like a placeholder, a default setting. Sometimes I'd lie there and wonder if he even noticed when I turned away. And I suppose, if I'm honest, I started turning away on purpose. To see if he'd follow. Most of the time, he didn't. The thing is, I'm not naive. I know relationships shift. People settle into routines, and the early rush of dopamine is never meant to last forever. But isn't something supposed to stay? Something essential? Some red thread of intimacy that doesn't fray with time? A few months ago, we were getting ready for a gala at Marcus's firm, the kind where everyone wears sleek black, and the wine is poured like water. I'd bought this emerald green dress, satin, open-backed. I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, he's going to love this. He has to. It was the first time in a long time I felt like myself again, confident, even a little dangerous. Marcus had already gone downstairs to take a call, and I was struggling with the zipper. I called out for help, expecting him to come up. Instead, his father, Richard, appeared in the doorway. Now, you have to understand, Richard is charming in that quiet, observant way. Always watching, always measured. There's something about him that feels like he sees everything and chooses carefully what to respond to. He smiled and said Marcus had asked him to come help since he was still on the call. I hesitated, just for a second, but turned around. I felt his fingers brush the skin of my back, cool, deliberate, as he found the zipper. The movement was slow. Precise. Too precise. I wasn't sure if he was struggling with the zipper or just taking his time. And then he zipped it, wrong. It caught the delicate fabric, tugging it awkwardly, slightly off-center. It pulled up my skin. I winced. He didn't apologize. He just said, "That should do it," with this unreadable tone. I froze. Not because of what he did, but because of what I felt. Or didn't feel. And because I realized in that strange, suspended moment that I hadn't felt seen like that, like I was a woman, not just a wife or a mother or a role, in years. And that's when it hit me, something in me had already changed. Or maybe it had been changing for so long, I just finally noticed. That was the moment I stopped pretending everything was fine. The night of the gala, I kept thinking about that zipper. Not just the way it snagged my dress, but the way Richard's hands felt so certain, so steady. Too steady. It left a flicker of discomfort in my chest that I couldn't shake. And not because it felt sexual, not really. It was more the silence of it. The silence that echoed what I wasn't getting at home. Marcus was in his element that night, laughing with colleagues, refilling my champagne, placing a hand on the small of my back when someone important passed by. But every touch felt like choreography, a public performance. I smiled, nodded, made conversation. But inside, I was drifting. Marcus is a cardiologist. He's brilliant, methodical, patient, always in control. Which is part of why I fell for him. But somewhere along the way, that same control became a wall I couldn't get past. He likes answers, not ambiguity. And I've become one big question mark. When we got home that night, he reached for me the moment the door closed. His lips were on my neck, his hands slipping down the sides of my dress. "God, you looked amazing tonight," he whispered. I stood there, still as glass. "Let me just get this off," he said, fumbling with the zipper. "Don't," I said, louder than I meant to. He pulled back, confused. Did I do something wrong? And I hated that question. Not because it was unfair, but because I didn't know how to answer it anymore. "No," I said, softening. "I'm just tired. It's been a long night." He nodded, but I saw the shadow of hurt cross his face. And still, I didn't explain. I didn't tell him how the way he touched me felt rushed, transactional, like skipping chapters in a book. I didn't say that I wanted to talk first, feel first. That I needed to be seen before I could be wanted. Instead, I kissed him on the cheek and disappeared into the bathroom. I could hear him moving around the bedroom as I peeled off the dress. For a moment, I caught my reflection in the mirror, bare shoulders, flushed cheeks, a dress hanging unevenly off my frame. I looked like someone playing a part she no longer believed in. The next morning, I made us coffee and sat across from him at the breakfast table, watching him scroll through emails on his phone. "I was thinking we should do something this weekend," I said. "Just us." He didn't look up. Maybe. Let me check the on-call schedule." I waited. Nothing. No follow-up question. No, "What did you have in mind?" No, "I'd love that." I set my cup down a little too hard. He looked up, startled. "What?" "Nothing. It's fine." But it wasn't. We were like two people rowing in opposite directions, trying to get to the same place. He kept showing love through gestures, booking a dinner reservation, touching my lower back when we walked, initiating sex without asking how I was. And I kept hoping for something quieter. A real conversation. An acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, we weren't okay. The week dragged. He worked a late shift Tuesday. I went to dinner with a friend on Wednesday and didn't even text to say I was home. Thursday, we passed each other like coworkers, polite, perfunctory, pleasant. And then Friday came. Marcus called to say he'd be late again. I told him it was fine. I was lying. Richard was already over. He'd dropped by to pick up some old photo albums we were digitizing for Marcus's mother. I offered him tea. We sat awkwardly in the living room. "You looked lovely the other night," he said, after a pause. I gave him a tight smile. "Thanks." He watched me a little too closely. I think Marcus knows he's lucky. Even if he doesn't always say it. That hit harder than I expected. "Sometimes," I said, slowly, "being loved and being noticed aren't the same thing." Richard didn't answer. Just nodded once and looked away, like he was afraid of what else I might say. So was I. Because the truth was, I didn't just feel neglected. I felt invisible. And I didn't know how much longer I could pretend that being touched was the same as being wanted. And that maybe, I wasn't the only one pretending. It was a quiet Saturday morning, the kind I used to love. The kind where we'd sleep in and tangle ourselves under the blankets until noon. Where the only plans were making coffee and stealing kisses in the kitchen. But now, I sat on the edge of the bed folding laundry while Marcus came up behind me, warm from the shower, towel still around his waist. He smelled like cedar and skin. It should have made me melt. Instead, my shoulders tensed the moment I felt his hands on them. "Hey," he murmured, pressing a kiss to the back of my neck. "You've been kind of far away lately." "I've just been tired," I said automatically, not even turning to look at him. "You always say that." I paused. "Because I am." He knelt beside me, tugging the folded shirt from my hands and setting it aside. "We barely touch anymore," he said, quietly. "I miss us." He wasn't accusing me, not really. His voice was soft, even pleading. But instead of feeling moved, I felt cornered. He leaned in to kiss me, full, open, lingering. I let him. I even kissed him back, but I felt myself perform it, like muscle memory. My brain was already doing math, wondering where this was leading. His hands found my waist. I pulled back. Just enough. "Marcus," I said, too fast. He stopped. "What?" "I don't know. Just, not right now." He sat back, confused, hurt spreading across his face in real time. "You never want to anymore. I try to be close to you, and you just shrink." I hated that word. Shrink. But he wasn't wrong. "I just want to feel like you see me," I said. "Not just touch me. Not just start with my body and hope the rest follows." He shook his head, frustrated. "That's not fair, Elise." "I'm trying. I kiss you, I hold you, I tell you you're beautiful, and all I get is distance. It's like you've already decided I can't win." I opened my mouth to respond but couldn't find words that didn't sound petty or cruel. The truth was, I wanted to want him. I wanted to feel that spark, that instinctive warmth I used to feel just seeing his name light up my phone. But now, every time he reached for me, my body went still. Not because I didn't love him, I did. But the way he reached for me felt like skipping a step. Like jumping into the middle of a conversation I wasn't ready for. He stood up and ran a hand through his hair. "You know what? I'm gonna go for a run." "Okay," I said, softly. He looked at me like he was waiting for something else. A reason to stay. I didn't give him one. When the door closed behind him, I finally exhaled. I walked into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror, again. My hair was messy, my eyes tired. I looked like a woman avoiding her husband, afraid of her own guilt. I leaned against the sink, ran cold water over my wrists. I thought about how long it had been since I felt like more than a body to someone. Since a conversation turned me on instead of hands. Since Marcus had asked how I was and actually waited for the real answer. Because every time he touches me now, I feel pressure. A silent expectation. A countdown. And it's not that I don't want intimacy. I crave it. But somewhere along the line, touch stopped meaning I see you and started meaning I want something from you. I dried my hands, stared at the towel rack. And thought, why does everything have to turn into sex? It was supposed to be a nice evening. Marcus had made reservations at a quiet bistro near the marina. The kind of place we used to go to on anniversaries or when we wanted to feel like us again. I knew what he was trying to do, reach out, rewind. I could feel him trying. But everything about the night felt fragile, like we were tiptoeing around glass. He'd worn the navy shirt I always loved, the one that made his eyes look deeper, kinder. I wore a soft gray dress, simple, elegant, safe. No zippers this time. The conversation started okay. We talked about work, a trip his hospital was planning, how I might finally take on a new design client. We sipped wine. Smiled politely. Then, over the entrees, he reached across the table and gently took my hand. "I've missed this," he said. I looked at our hands, his thumb brushing over my skin. And something in me twisted. I nodded. Yeah. But it was flat. And he knew it. "Elise," he said, "I'm trying here. I really am. But it feels like no matter what I do, it's not good enough for you." I opened my mouth to respond, but instead, I just stared at him. Because I could feel it, the dam cracking inside me. "You keep trying to fix it with date nights and kisses," I said, my voice low but shaking, "but you don't even ask me how I'm feeling." He leaned back, stunned. "What do you think we're doing right now? I brought you out so we could reconnect." "That's just it, Marcus," I said, louder now. "You think taking me to dinner is connection. You think touching me and complimenting my dress means we're okay. But I don't feel seen, I feel managed." People at the next table turned their heads. I felt my throat tighten. Marcus blinked. "Managed?" "Yes," I snapped. "Like I'm a task on your list." Romance, check. Dinner, check. Sex attempt, check. His face hardened. "Wow. That's incredibly unfair." I laughed, too sharp, too bitter. "Is it? Do you even remember what I told you the night of the gala? About feeling invisible?" He didn't answer. "Exactly," I said, my voice cracking. "That night, when I asked you to zip up my dress, you didn't come. You sent your father." My voice faltered. "He zipped me up wrong, Marcus." He stood behind me and I choked on the words. And I stood there frozen, because it felt more intimate than anything we'd done in months. And that terrified me. His mouth opened in disbelief. "You felt something? With my dad?" "No," I said quickly, tears rising. "Not like that. I mean, maybe for a second, I didn't know what I was feeling. But it wasn't about him. It was about what I haven't felt from you in so long." Marcus went quiet. His jaw tensed, his eyes unreadable. Then he stood abruptly, dropping his napkin on the table. "I need some air," he muttered, walking toward the door without looking back. And just like that, I was alone. The tears came hot and fast the moment he was gone. I covered my face, aware of the curious glances from strangers around me. I'd made a scene. In public. Something I'd always promised myself I wouldn't do. But more than the embarrassment, what gutted me was the look on his face. He wasn't just hurt. He was blindsided. And I hated myself for it. I'd held it in for too long, all the slow deaths, the small aches. And when it finally broke loose, it came out sharp and clumsy, aimed at the one person I was still hoping would save me from it. I didn't want to be this version of me, brittle, biting, resentful. I didn't want to measure every kiss for meaning, to recoil from the man I once couldn't get enough of. But I also couldn't keep pretending. I wiped my face, still shaking, the untouched wine glass in front of me catching the candlelight like a spotlight on my failure. What had I done? And yet, beneath the guilt and the shame and the ache of pushing too hard, too fast, one question echoed louder than the rest: if he loves me, why does it always have to turn into sex? It's been 16 days since the dinner. Not that I'm counting, except I am. I count the quiet mornings. The hollow evenings. The cups of coffee we make without asking if the other wants one. Marcus hasn't touched me since. Not in anger, he's not cruel like that. But in that steady, careful way that says I won't reach for you if you don't want me to. And I don't know which hurts more, his distance or the way it mirrors mine. He still comes home late most nights. I pretend I'm asleep. We move like strangers in the same house, polite, efficient, hollow. We talk logistics. Groceries. Dog food. When his parents are visiting next. Not one word about what I said that night. I miss him. Not just his body, or the way he used to press a kiss behind my ear when I was washing dishes, but his presence. The way he used to fold into me on the couch like we were a shared shape. The quiet steadiness of him. But I also miss me. The version of me that felt alive when he looked at me. Desired, yes, but also understood. Like he could read the space inside my silence. That version hasn't been here for a while. Last night, I came into the living room and found him sitting in the dark, staring at the television, not watching. Just sitting there with that faraway look, like he'd floated off and didn't know how to come back. He didn't see me at first. And in that second, I saw something in him I hadn't let myself see in weeks: sadness. Real, human, aching sadness. He wasn't withholding affection to punish me. He wasn't some cold-hearted man incapable of emotional depth. He was hurt. And he didn't know how to fix it either. I walked away before he noticed me. I couldn't bear the weight of it. Of us. This morning, I stood at the bedroom door and watched him tying his tie. He still does it the same way, a slow half-Windsor, careful and clean. His hands fumbled once, then steadied. I wondered if he was tired. If he'd slept at all. "Do you need coffee?" I asked. He glanced at me through the mirror. "I'm good. Thanks." Then he looked down. Adjusted the knot. Walked out of the room. No anger. No cruelty. Just distance. And I hated that I'd helped build it. That I'd said things that made him feel like a failure when he was really just lost, like me. I sat on the bed, the same one we hadn't touched each other in for over 2 weeks, and let myself feel the weight of everything. Not just the silence between us now, but the grief of what used to be. Of what I'd thrown at him in that restaurant, not wrong, but not fair. And what I hadn't said, too. I wanted him to see me, but I hadn't really seen him either. Not the long hours, the exhaustion, the quiet ways he'd tried. I'd made his efforts invisible in the same way I felt unseen. It wasn't just his failure. It was ours. And I didn't know how to fix it. But I also didn't want to let this be the end. Not like this. Not with so much left unsaid. I reached for my phone, heart thudding. I typed, "Do you have time tonight? To talk?" I stared at it. Then I hit send. I didn't know what would happen next. Whether we'd rebuild or finally let go. But I knew this: if I didn't try, really try, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. He didn't reply right away. By the time I heard his car pull into the driveway, the sun had dipped behind the trees and our dog had curled up beside the door, waiting like always. I stood in the kitchen, unsure if I should pretend to be doing something, or just wait, like I had waited so many nights before, without even knowing it. The door opened. Closed. Footsteps. He walked into the kitchen and stood in the doorway, still in his hospital scrubs, his face pale and drawn. "You wanted to talk?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Yeah." He didn't sit. Just leaned against the counter, arms folded, like he was bracing himself. I took a breath. "I'm sorry." He looked up, tired but alert. "Waiting. I was cruel at the restaurant," I said. "What I said about your dad, I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't trying to suggest anything happened. Just..." I froze. I felt something strange and intimate, and it scared me because it wasn't you. And I hated that. Marcus didn't speak. But he didn't look away either. I kept going. I felt empty for a while, and I didn't know how to say it without blaming you. But I see now, you've been trying in the ways you know how. I needed something different. And instead of asking for it, I shut down. A long silence. Then, finally, he spoke. I didn't know you felt that alone, he said, voice rough. And yeah. I pulled away too. It wasn't on purpose. Work's been nonstop, and I guess I thought if I could just hold you or take you out, maybe we'd fall back into place. He looked down. But it stopped feeling like a place you wanted to be. That landed deep. I blinked against the sting in my eyes. I whispered. I just forgot how to be with you without feeling like I was failing. His gaze softened. I think we both forgot. A few more seconds passed, then he stepped forward, cautiously, and pulled me into a hug. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't a fix. It was tired arms and silent apology. My face buried against his shoulder, his breath warm on my hair. We stayed like that for a long time. Later, he laid down on the couch without saying much more. I brought him a blanket. He didn't ask to come to bed. I didn't ask him to. We weren't fixed. Not even close. But the silence felt different now. Less like punishment, more like pause. Like we were standing at the edge of something broken, together this time, trying to decide if it was worth rebuilding. And in that small, quiet moment, I finally let myself hope. I think people assume love ends in an explosion. Some betrayal, some epic fight. Someone storms out, slams a door, and that's that. But in real life, in my life, love didn't end like that. It faded. Quietly. Soft and slow, like fog swallowing a familiar road. One day, you look around and you don't know where you are anymore. You're still with the same person. Sharing dinner. Paying bills. Folding laundry. But it's not love the way you used to know it. It's something else. Something thinner. My name's Elise. I'm 34. And I used to believe that the right relationship would always feel full. Lit up. Safe and sexy and sure. But now I know better. What happened between Marcus and me, it wasn't infidelity in the way people expect. No cheating. No secret affair. But it felt like betrayal in its own way. To be touched by someone who wasn't my husband, even in a small, accidental, wrong way, and to feel something. Not arousal. Not attraction. Just presence. Just a flicker of attention that didn't feel obligatory or rehearsed. And it gutted me. Because it showed me how empty I had become. When Marcus used to touch me, it was like coming home. Now? Every kiss felt like an echo. Every cuddle a pattern. Even the way he said I love you, it was there, but it was hollow. Like brushing your teeth, something you do because you're supposed to. We tried. We really did. We had the hard conversation. We hugged. We cried. We even made love again, and it was gentler, more deliberate. Like two people trying to remember who they used to be. And for a moment, I thought maybe we could find our way back. But here's what no one tells you, sometimes the damage isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's just slow starvation. And once you realize you've been hungry for too long, it's hard to convince yourself crumbs will ever be enough again. So no, we didn't break up the next day. We didn't shout or file for divorce or tear each other apart. We just stopped pretending. A few weeks later, we sat on the porch, wine between us, and I said, I think we've loved each other the best way we knew how. But maybe that's not enough anymore. And he nodded. No blame. No anger. Just two people who had run out of road. We still talk sometimes. We're not enemies. There's a kind of love in letting go, too. What I've learned, what I wish I'd known sooner, is that emotional intimacy doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts in the ordinary. The asking how you really are kind of love. The listening without fixing. The pausing to see the person you love instead of just assuming they're still who you remember. Desire? That's not just about attraction. It's about attention. And over time, we both stopped offering that, in different ways. And that's when we started losing each other. So no, I didn't cheat. And my father-in-law didn't mean anything by zipping up my dress wrong. But that moment, that tiny, clumsy moment, shook me. Because it woke up something inside me I hadn't felt in a long time, the ache of being seen. And once I remembered what that felt like, I couldn't unfeel it. Now? I'm still learning. Still rebuilding my relationship with myself, with desire, with what it means to be touched emotionally before being touched physically. It's messy. It's lonely sometimes. But it's honest. And that's something I hadn't been with myself, or Marcus, in a long time. So if you're listening to this and wondering if it's too late to speak up, to ask for more, to be known, let me tell you, the silence costs more than the risk. Be honest. Be brave. And don't wait for a stranger to zip up your dress to remember you're still alive inside. You deserve more than echoes. You deserve to be seen. 3.